everyone, welcome to another episode of Rise Together. My goodness, I say this a lot. I'm excited about today's episode, and I am super excited about today because this is the first ever official Walmart International interview happening right now with Lee Jeyes, the Director of In-Store Innovation for Walmart Canada. Did I get all that correct?
You got it 100% right. Good to be with you.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you on the show. Lee, we've connected so many times via social media and different contexts like that. But man, tell us about you, who you are, and what you do for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, first of all, and thanks for all the great work you're doing. So as you mentioned, Lee Jeyes, I lead the in-store innovation teams here in Canada. So I have an awesome team that works with our associates in the stores to solve real life problems that they face day to day with their operations, and also customer experience initiatives. So things like self-checkouts, things like front-end strategy, checkout with me, those kind of cool innovation strategies that are hitting our stores is led through my team. So yeah, really cool role. I wake up every day excited to be working for Walmart and to be having the impact in the stores that we can. It's just definitely a fun role.
That is awesome. So when I know that innovation's a tricky topic because we've got so many things in and of its name, right? Well, we're innovating ideas, and this being a public platform, we don't want to talk about a lot of crazy stuff that is, we're trying out. But what are some cool things that are happening right now that we can talk about? That's public knowledge happening in Walmart Canada specific.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones for us that's the biggest strategy for this year is around front-end reinvention. As we see our customers shifting and you see how people are getting more comfortable with technology, convenience is becoming more a factor for people, how quick they can get in and out of a store. Definitely a project that we have on the go is around self-checkout acceleration, which is effectively enabling a lot of stores to be able to support the customers on the front end by increasing the options that they have in total amount of checkouts. So that's one of the biggest ones. Again, as you mentioned, there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that we're working on, but those are the large ones.
And they are huge. The customer has always, and not just at Walmart, everywhere has complained about, wait times. And it's something that Walmart is passionate about seeing, not just from the e-commerce side with pickup and bringing your groceries to your car, but also, again, our the nuts and bolts of it all, the brick and mortar side in our stores, figuring out ways to help the customer shop and get checked out as quickly as possible. So that's very cool. With man, there's so many things. Self checkout, and I don't know about Walmart Canada, but checkout with me and all these different avenues that we're now creating for the customer. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about giving options to them. When you think about what it is not every customer is going to want to check out the same way. There's different ways that they to like to engage with a cashier or not. So it's about just providing as many options for them as possible, and they can decide which way they like to check out our stores. So yeah, it's exciting. It really is exciting what's happening.
What's a problem, and I don't know, maybe this is a bad question to ask, but what's a situation or problem you've dealt with that you felt like the solution that came was pretty cool, was successful in some way?
I have a really interesting story, and it's funny because when you speak about innovation, as you said, typically people assume that it has to be large, emerging technologies, heavily complicated, and often it doesn't, especially in our stores. So as much as we're trying to solve problems with a lot of exponential technologies, we're also looking at how do we fix day-to-day issues in the stores. And often the simplest of solutions from an innovation perspective are the ones that work. And I'll give you one example. We're about to launch a first store pilot of a new front-end look and feel. And we're building this really complicated queuing mechanism, which effectively would tell the customer which self-checkout to go to. It would be done based on algorithms as to which ones are going to be available next. But it just, frankly, wasn't going to be ready in time for the launch. And I remember being in the store the day before we launched. And I said, well, what about if we just changed the lights of the self-checkouts? And everybody looked at me and I said, what about if it was available to the customer, it'd be green. The green light was on. The minute that it went into use, the green light would go off. And the minute the customer needed help, the green light would flash. I'm like, you guys think you could do that overnight? And they're like, yeah, we could do that. So we went in to go live the next day. And I tell you, we saved a significant amount of money, time, effort, and energy building an overly complicated system because the green lights just solved it. So it's just, I stood there on the day of launch with the associates, just watching customers and how they took the green lights. And it just works like an absolute dream. So it's funny because you sometimes you can get overly deep into trying to solution for something and you're trying to overcomplicate it. And the reality is, what I'm learning time and time again is typically our associates have the solutions for us. They know the real problems and they have the solutions there. And 9 times out of the 10, the solution is probably a very simple one that you just need to put into place. And so we rolled out those green lights across the whole of the company. And it was interesting. It's like the simplest of ideas that was on the portfolio is probably had one of the biggest amount of impacts. So yeah, it is cool. I mean, innovation is such a buzzword. Everyone's talking about innovation, but really it doesn't have to be connected to tech. It can just be about solving a real problem in a store.
Absolutely. So now I know Lee is the light guy.
They're the green light guy. It's funny.
That's a great thing to have, like you said, in your portfolio. What a great lesson.
What was really funny is as we were buying all these green lights, we were talking about, I wonder if in a few years from now, the category manager who buys light bulbs for the company is wondering why all of a sudden he has this spike in green light bulb sales. And we start to get, pallets of green lights in stores around this time of the year because we brought thousands of these lights because they had no history on it. So we wonder what impact it's going to have later on that we probably don't know about.
That's funny. Talking about inventory flow, what that could look like. Sure. That is funny. What I think that's a great lesson there for our even just the department manager, that sometimes we might be overcomplicating a problem and you need to take a break, take a step back and look at that same problem, and maybe it's something pretty simple. I immediately, you're sitting here talking about, I immediately was thinking about something that happened recently with some MPP. So how we protect our products, and some of the easiest solutions are pretty great. So I don't know if I can actually give details on it, but it was pretty interesting that it just came down to, we just need to spend a couple dollars on a locking mechanism and we're good to go. And so it's interesting.
I think we all fall into this trap of, if it seems too simple as a solution into your head, you assume that it would have been done already, or that it would have been implemented. Or you fall into this trap of, well, someone must be thinking about that, or it must be, someone must be trying to solution for it. And that's not always the case. I mean, typically there are reasons why sometimes they don't work. And as you test these things out, it becomes more complicated. But I always say to associates, just call it out. Just no idea is a bad one. And at least I believe truly in innovation, it's about proving that it works just as quickly as proving that it doesn't work, so that you can enable yourself to move on from a solution. So we always want it to be the thing that works and moves the business forward. But I believe that it's just as important to prove that it doesn't work, so then you can forget about that solution and move on to the next one. So yes, I think we're all guilty of falling into that trap with probably most aspects of our life on certain things.
Sure. Absolutely. And I love that what you just said, bubble up that idea. Walmart's passionate and it has been since the founding. Sam said our best ideas come from our associates. And so making sure that happens. If you've got a great idea, man, make sure that it's going up the ladder. Make sure you've shared it with individuals and see if we can do something with that idea, because you might very well be the missing green light piece that we need. You never know. So we kind of jumped right into your role and what you do now, but is there more Walmart story to Lee's story?
Yeah, most definitely. So I've been been with the organization close to 13 years now. And I honestly started just like a lot of associates of ours. It was a part-time job when I was in college back in the UK, working for Asda, obviously, who is part of the Walmart family. Again, this for me was just effectively an ends to a means, working on the weekends, working on the evenings to earn myself some money as I was going through college.
Sure.
But then quite honestly, I just fell in love with the organization. I fell in love with the beliefs and how we operate as a company. And I also fell in love with the opportunity. I think one of the biggest things for me is the organization has continued to give me opportunity and been able to allow me to grow and learn a tremendous amount of new skills. But so I started as a 16-year-old in the UK, just working at Christmas for, I think I was stocking turkeys for like 2 weeks straight, just in the freezer, very cold. Probably prepared me for the Canadian winters now that I'm experiencing now living in Canada. But that was where I started, and I grew through the store and did pretty much every role from a stocker to cashier. I did in-store loss prevention for a period of time, and then I went through the assistant management ranks, and I was given the opportunity to run a store. I was actually one of the youngest store managers. I'm sure someone has beat me back in the UK now. I ran a store, my first store, at 22 years old in the UK.
Holy cow.
Which was really cool. Like, I mean, again, when you talk about opportunity, to have the ability to, an opportunity to lead and work with our associates at such a young age was super cool. And then I got the privilege to go to the shareholders meeting in the US, which was just, I'm an individual. As an individual, I'm typically very introverted, and the thoughts of going to shareholders and the energy and kind of that whole event. To be honest, at the time, pretty scared me. And my coach at the time pushed me out of my comfort zone. He's like, "You're gonna go. You're gonna love it." And interestingly, I managed to connect with the Canadian team and spoke about opportunities, and then moved to Canada at the age of 23. I joined the Assistant Accelerated Store Manager program here in Canada. Again, I think I was one of the youngest store managers here in Canada at the time. I ran a store for a period of about 12 to 14 months. And then I went on to help build the online grocery program. So I had some experience in the UK from doing online grocery. The UK has been running a business like that for a significant period of time. So it helps to support from an operational perspective. So how do we get a store ready? How do we train associates? And we actually helped support and launch online grocery here in Canada in the Ottawa market at the time, which was a ton of fun. That was a lot of fun. That was really connecting associates again to a new area of the business. It was almost like working for a startup inside of a large organization, which was really cool, but came with a different level of skills and things that it taught me. And I think I took all the knowledge that I had built in terms of running stores, being an associate at that point, and applied it to that program. And it was a very successful launch, and that program is now gone throughout the country. I then went on to loss prevention. I did loss prevention. I was a director for loss prevention for about 130 odd stores, Western Canada, and then Eastern Canada, and then into this role. So the story has been one that's just been, when I look back in 13 years, it's gone by so fast. When I look at the number of roles that I've been through, the amount of incredible leaders that I've worked with, every single role that I've been in has purely been about the team around me and the associates that have worked with me. From an associate in the UK, and then being my peers and my colleagues, to then being the associates when I ran stores. Every single time it's about engaging that team. They know the customer, they know the process. Again, they know where the opportunities are. And if you truly listen to them and action some of the feedback that you hear from them, my associates and my team around me have always been the number one reason why I've been able to move on to different opportunities and learn more as an individual. So 13-year experience that I love every single day. I get up every day excited to keep coming to work, to make the lives easier of our customers every day as well as our associates. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey that I've loved every single step of the way.
Sure. I mean, you just moving from the UK to Canada, I would think, is a very significant shift. We've got associates that don't want to leave the town. So
yeah, it was it's such again, I was 23 at the time, 22 at the time actually. Definitely was a big step. I remember selling everything. A very interesting story. I was being put into a store in Canada called Stony Creek, and in Canada we have over 400 stores. And I was very nervous about getting in. I sold my house, I sold my car, I packed all my possessions into 5 boxes and shipped them over. And actually, it wasn't until I got into Canada itself that I knew whether my work permit was going to be approved or not. And what was so amazing was, I'm not really a believer in luck, but for this time I believed in luck a little. The lady, the immigration officer that I met with for the first time at the border, shopped in the same store that I was going to be posted in.
Oh, wow.
So I could have got any immigration officer. I could have been posted in any of the 410 stores, but somehow I managed to get the officer that lived in that store. Thankfully, shout out to the store 3096 Stony Creek, that they ran a good store, because I don't know how that interview would have went if the store wasn't looking very good. I'm not sure that I would be sitting here talking to you today. No, the application went great, and everything was great, and I moved through. But it's just funny. It really is funny, the coincidence that happened, that I could have got any officer on any day. So.
Sure. That's outstanding. What a great, hey, that's our customer. They're everywhere. You never know. So if at minimum, be good to the customer, because you might someday need an immigration officer to get you clearance. That's great. What, Lee, do you have any specific leadership lessons that come to mind from mentors or mentees that you want to share?
Most definitely. I think they've evolved. When I think about what was really crucial to me when I was running stores, and I was in operations day to day, like, really serving the customer on the front line. I kind of mentioned it. For me as a leader, it was all about listening to associates, and the associates see it every single day. They've seen how the organizational change has changed. They see how the customer interacts with us. They see where our opportunities are. So for me, it's always about listening and truly understanding where the challenges lie with our associates, and then actioning them. I mean, it goes without saying, but sometimes we assume that the associates are going to do it themselves. But if you really listen to them and put a plan behind it, associates always will be the ones that help solve most of the issues for you. Again, if I stick to in-store operations, process for me was always number one. All throughout every role that I've had in operations and how we run our stores, if you can keep a hold on how you manage inventory and process in stores, for me, it just frees up time. And what I typically see is a lot of people, when you don't have enough time, it's easy to give up on process. I just won't do this scan and outs process today, or I just won't do these price changes because I don't have time. And in my view, it was always the process created you time. And the minute that you drop the process, you actually became less efficient because of it, because it creates a lot of inefficiencies. So process for me in operations was always king. And then lastly, I think, growing through the ranks at such a young age, with relatively little experience at the time, ask for and provide honest feedback all the time. For me, there's nothing more respectful to be honest with people. And I know that's something that some people struggle with, but I've always asked for feedback from my associates, from my assistant managers, from my peers, because truly, if you don't understand how you're showing up as a leader, and you don't have that awareness as to how people take you, or sometimes how people perceive you, you don't really have the opportunity to adjust that. So don't be naive, and don't just stay focused on it, and make sure you're checking in for feedback.
Absolutely love. In fact, I'm going to work in backwards order. Like you just said, communication's key. You talked about strategy and really understanding what you want to do moving forward. Talk about giving great feedback. That's going to be crucial. But I love what you said about process. Obviously, on the academy side, we're passionate about process, and you're exactly right. Sometimes it's the first thing that goes, and kind of like we're kind of hype right now as a society. I feel like on self-help, right? On health and wellness. You have to have a schedule for yourself in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And for us as manager roles, if you really want to be successful long term, you don't feel like you have enough time. The last thing you want to get rid of is the process step. Because that's just going to push it on. You're just pushing it off to later.
Never ever stop learning, because the world and retail is changing at a pace. If you stop and slow down, you'll look back and you truly realize then that things have moved so far beyond where you're keeping up with. So just keep learning.
That's awesome. You're exactly right. We have a void. We throw around the term leadership, but at the end of the day, we need it. We need great leaders in great roles, and keep educating yourself. That's great stuff. So the last question I always ask, and this is the first time I've asked the Walmart International associate. So what does the Walmart Spark mean to you now?
Yeah, for me, what the Spark represents is opportunity. I think the Spark represents opportunity for everyone within the side of the organization to, put themselves out there, to learn new skills, to potentially move on and add more value to the organization, to add different skill sets to themselves, as well as bring more skills to the organization. But for me, it's all about opportunity. I would never have thought that back at 16 years old, I'd be able to do some of the things that I've done today, move countries, lead different teams, run stores of 300-400 associates, build new businesses.
That's awesome. That's so good. Well, I know that I don't want to eat any more of your time up, but we so much appreciate your time today, being on the show and saying all these different things. Any last minute words for us?
No, thanks for having us, and I look forward to continuing to watch the show. And I love what you guys are doing for associates. It's so important to me being an associate with this organization all the way through. And be courageous if you're an associate listening. I know it's probably scary to potentially come on camera and talk about your experiences, but there's not one video that I haven't watched that I've not taken something away from. And that's leadership. That's just continuing to learn. Knowing that you haven't got it all figured out, and just continue to challenge the boundaries. So thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for the opportunity to come on. It's been awesome.
Man, that was a great word, and I appreciate that very much, Lee. So hey, again, thank you, and everyone watching. As always, you can watch this episode and so many more on YouTube and Facebook, as well as listening on podcasts through SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play, wherever you listen to them. So again, thank you, Lee, for being on the show. Thank Walmart Canada for making their first appearance. Appreciate it. Hey, everyone, have a great day.